Welcome back to Creations with DX Gardening. Today we are actually going to be doing a little bit of a different project. These are snake plants. They are great for oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. If you do some research on snake plants, they're one of the best household plants that actually give off the most oxygen in the area. So I actually happen to have purchased 4 of these plants for each of the nightstands in the house, and also with we have some larger ones downstairs. Now, the nice part about these snake plants is you can actually split them as they grow and transplant them and replant them. And thus giving you more snake plants. You can give them away to a friend. You can grow, just keep them more places around the house, so on and so forth. So they're very easy to split. They will reroot and grow. They give off their own splittings, and I'll show you what that looks like today and how to identify that, and we can go from there. One of the other reasons that I really like these style plants is that they are hard to kill. We notoriously with houseplants have had a difficult time in the past. As I learn more and more about gardening, it's a lot easier. But for beginners, this is a wonderful type of plant because it only requires you to water about once a week. And even then, I'll show you, my kids have not watered theirs probably in several weeks. You can actually just see, look how dry this soil is. It's completely dry, very awful for this. And that's part of the reason we're going to be getting this replanted, so on and so forth today. Now with that, you can see how dry the roots are even, it's just crumbling. But look at this plant. It's very healthy. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's getting some discoloration, a little bit limp. It will eventually die. But the positive side is we can easily water this and bring it back to life before anything serious happens to it. So we're going to go ahead and do that today, and we'll get started. So as you can see, these plants are really just starting to outgrow. Look at the compaction of those root system. I mean, that's a wonderful root system. But you can really see they're really just starting to outgrow. Now, as they start to spread and give more root, you see that there? This is extended and bringing up a whole nother plant. So that's what we're looking for today. The fact that this is now given a whole new plant and it's got this solid, nice root system, we're going to snip that right off of there. And we're actually going to, funny enough, replant that into this same pot. So because that's a smaller plant, it's already given off a couple of leaves, I'm going to use this smaller pot for that. And I'm going to take this one and I'm going to actually replant this larger plant into another pot. Now this pot is way too big for what we're doing here, but you know what, I got it at a garage sale for I think $5 for $1. So I have like 5 of these identical pots. Now I'm not going to plant 5 snake plants in them today, but I am going to use this for actually all 4 of these snake plants. I'm going to put all 4 of them into the same pot and really just try to give them some more room to grow, get those roots expanded. So I'm going to get all the splittings off of each of those and transplant them into here. One of the benefits to having such a large pot there is it really gives them a chance to bloom. And I'll show you at the end of this video what one of my larger snake plants looks like and see how tall it really can get. I think they're upwards of 3 to 4 feet now in those larger ones. So it'll be good. There'll be enough room here for all 4 of those plants that I showed you. And we'll take all the splittings and we'll replant them so we can still have our nightstand oxygen exchange at night. But we'll take this pot here and we'll keep it somewhere downstairs. So that way we can continue to have some more oxygen exchange in the house with all the animals and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and get this filled up with some soil here. I actually have some leftover mix that somebody gave me. It's just some simple potting mix. Not enough, unfortunately, to fill up that bucket. So I'm going to amend that with some other mix that somebody gave us. It's some orchid mix. It's a little bit of a drier, almost like a type of bark type of thing, which is really great. I'm sure it's full of nutrients, so on and so forth. So I'm just going to mix the 2 of them together. One of the things about transplanting plants that a lot of people tend to do is they tend to transplant it into the soil and then water it afterwards. What you really want to do is get the soil in there, put some water in there, mix it really well with your hands, almost make it like a clay-like formation, and then that's when you want to transplant the plants. Gives them a lot better chance of survival with already moist soil. And then you really don't have to water it afterwards because you've already got that moistened soil. So it gives the roots something to grab onto, so on and so forth. So we'll get started with that, and I'll be right back. Try and get that soil level raised up. Now I want these to sit a little bit below that fill line there. So what I've done is I've only filled it about that much. Now as soon as I get the water in there, it'll probably compact it a little bit more. But it is, you know, it's not too bad. I could probably stand a little bit more, and if I need to, I can always top it off later. Once we get them in the soil, I kind of want to maybe four corner it at the moment. See how that goes. You could bunch them together in the middle, but I really want that root system to really have some room to intertwine and act up. And what they'll do is they'll continue to send off runners like I showed you before, and those runners will probably form a new plant right there in the dead center. Again, we can always transplant these again and split them if we need to. Like I said, I've got a couple more of these pots, but for now, this is all the extra potting soil that I have at the moment until I go to the store and get some more. So I want to throw them all into this one pot, see how they do. And when you transplant plants, you always want to give a minimum of 2 to 4 weeks to adjust to their environment before you try to replant them again. So otherwise, that's really the best rule of thumb to avoid transplant shock. So give me a moment. I'm going to go ahead and get some water in this bucket, get the soil mixed up. I'll show you what that consistency kind of looks like, and we'll go from there. All right. Okay, and we're back. So as you can see, we've already pre-moistened our soil in there. I don't know if you can get a good look there. So this is a draining pot. So this is a draining pot. So as I tipped it up to show you the contents there, guys, it actually has a water reservoir at the bottom, and I thought I did a good job of dumping it out in the sink, but gotta love soil. It's slowly continuing to drip down into that pot. Now typically you wouldn't put this much water in it, that it would have so much in there to leak out like that, but it's a nice feature if you are looking for a new pot. I'd always look for something that's going to catch the water at the bottom, that saves that water reservoir for the future. Also helps keep the moisture in the pot so that way it can self-wick and continue to water that plant for a long time to come. It'll cut down on the amount of times you're watering, especially if you're going out of town, things like that. It's a great feature to have, except for when you're trying to do a video about it, of course. Now I'll try to show you here some of that consistency. Now this is a little bit different because what I used was that orchid mix. It's almost like a bark type of mix there, mixed with the regular potting mix. So it isn't the basically normal, but as you can see here, crumbles in my hand, but yet when I grab it, it's almost like a mud, almost like a see if I can get it a little bit closer for you to see it, but it's formed. You can actually see how it like formed, but yet watch, now I just crumbles right apart in my hand. So that's the consistency you're going for. I really like the mix. This wasn't my plan, but I really like this potting mix. So it's got a lot of bark in it, and as you guys know, bark holds a lot of moisture, but it also breaks down over time. So again, another thing that's going to be great for these plants for the future of not having to water them, or if you forget to water them, you're going on vacation, you don't want to worry about them being watered. So this is a great type of a mix for these plants. Apparently even comes with rocks, so interesting little mix that is. So I'm going to go ahead and get started by pulling this first plant out here. I'm going to go with this particular one here. As you can see, it's very, very dry right now, and the roots are all exposed there. Now this one doesn't have any runners, and the reason for that is I've recently cut this one probably 3-4 weeks ago and transplanted it already. So this one is the only one out of the three that doesn't have a runner. I'm actually going to take that original one that I planted a while back and replant that back into this pot, so that way we have both. But as you can see, I have this particular plant here is very dry. So what I want to do is kind of break up some of that soil a little bit gently. I'm not actually pushing on or crumbling it. What I'm going to do is actually take this. See how the roots are kind of getting loose on me, and so that's what I'm looking for. I want those roots to be able to go into the soil and really branch out. But because this one is so dry, I'm going to go get it a little wet. I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. Now, I've got the plant here, and I'm just going to dig a small hole in the pot. You can see that it is kind of it's kind of buried, it's underneath there. That's okay. I have cats. I would much rather it be a little buried so that they don't get into the pot and start digging it out. Like I said, these get very tall. They don't need to be right at the top of your pot. Usually some people like to have it 1 inch to 2 inches below. One of the other reasons that I get a little bit lower, not just because of the cats, but I like it a little bit lower because when I'm watering it, it keeps the backsplash in the pot, so on and so forth. So, all right, so that's one. We've got one now officially transplanted. As you can see, the empty pot that it came from. I'm going to need to take some of this soil mixture, and I'm glad we have some left, and kind of repot that so with some of these other ones that we repot. But in the meantime, you're going to need a pair of scissors, and you're going to need the next plants. See, so this particular one, look at how it's just really starting to branch off. Look, it's even starting, it's got a little bit of a nub there as you to really start to branch, maybe even a fourth one. You can see what happens when the cat or an animal kind of chews on it. It gives itself kind of a callus or harden there. You know, when it breaks, so on and so forth. Also, maybe from being a bit dry and brittle. So you can see this one's very dry as well. Again, this is one of those plants that are very hardy. Transplanted like this is going to do great for it. Just trying to get that moisture and nutrients back into these roots. And then I'm going to have to be the one, I guess, that takes over watering these moving forward. So I recommend about once a week. It's okay that the soil dries out like this, but this is a bit too dry. So what I'm going to do here is get it a little bit wet so it's easier to split, and I'll be right back. So I just took it right over to the kitchen sink, and I, you know, ran it under some water there. So now I'm going to see the in between those two, right? So I'm going to take this soil. I'm going to do it above this pot so I don't get lose as much soil. We're still saving it. I'm going to take the soil. I'm just going to kind of loosely spread it out a little bit, kind of get the roots a little looser and the soil a little bit looser. And then what I'm going to do is take the scissors, and I'm going to cut right down the middle. I'm looking for that big trunk line that we saw earlier. See this big trunk line there? Let me get a little bit closer. There, it's kind of hard to see that solid piece there. I'm looking for that, but I want to split it like right down the middle because I'd really like both. So there you go. Now whatever roots come along with it, I tend to keep. I don't try to pull them off or anything like that. because I want both systems to have roots, and they will reform. See that there? That's got quite a bit of a good solid root system on it. Now this, as you can see, because it was on the outside of the plant, is the newer growth. It's not the older growth. The original growth actually was, that we had anyway, was this. Now this could have been split from a different plant in the past. I just cut it right down the center there, kind of, it'll callus over, harden up itself. It almost looks like it's already growing a new set there from where we cut it. Looks like in general that might have already been falling kind of apart and starting to form its own growth. Oh, I'm sorry, it is starting to grow another nub there. See, it's already starting to branch out and grow. It's kind of hard to get all the roots. Well, that's not where we cut it. Where we actually cut it was right here from the other growth that it had previously done. So as you can kind of tell there from where that cut was made. So this one's actually already starting to form another one. And so what I'm going to do is actually plant that nub towards the middle. So if it does want to continue to grow in that direction, it'll go in the middle and hopefully sprout out that way. So I'm going to go ahead and get this next one planted in here. Now that one's actually small enough that I probably could have put it back into this other pot and kept it. It probably didn't need to get transplanted in here, but because of that, and I actually thought about it until I saw that new growth. That new growth, it would be great to see it kind of spring up in this pot and have kind of a fifth one, if you will, in this pot. Now this is the cutting that we just took off, the newer cutting. I'm going to plant it into this particular pot so I can put it back into the boys' room. So, all right, I'm just going to set that aside for now. It's okay, like I said. It's not hurting it to be out of soil or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that there like that for now. And we'll move on to the next one. Now this one's actually, funny enough, probably doing the best out of all of them. This one actually belongs on my wife's nightstand, and I got it out the other day. It was so dry, just like those other two, but it's growing the best out of all of them, even though it dries out probably the most. My wife's nightstand is actually over top of a furnace vent, and it's cold. Obviously, the furnace has been kicking like crazy. So this one actually gets so much heat from the furnace or the vent itself. It's amazing, and obviously this plant likes heat. Look how wide this leaf is on there. It's even my tall plants don't have leaves that wide. So it's definitely time to transplant this one, but obviously we don't want to lose that benefit. So we're going to give her this root that had sprung up and is doing really well. So that one is doing really well. The boys actually keep theirs on the windowsill, and it's been cold, so that's why they were smaller, kind of more dwarfed. So these plants do like heat. I don't know where they originate from, but I imagine it's a tropical. So something to keep in mind. I wouldn't keep them next to a cold window, or I wouldn't keep them next to the air conditioning unit or something like that. But definitely something, a great plant, house plant, for those of you who are looking for a beneficial houseplant like that. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to find, it looks like this one's already starting to get some roots right off that trunk line, which is fantastic. That's what we were hoping for. So I'm going to go ahead and get right up as far as I can inside of there, and I'm going to snip that off. I'm going to do it right over this pot here though. So yep, there we go. I snipped it off, and look at that. It's got its own root system already going, so nothing to worry about there. It'll be very healthy when we transplant it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to stick that right in that pot so that way I can get to it later. And look at this beautiful, healthy, nicely plant, already good to go. So we're just going to get that in the soil here and move on to the next one. So, all right, so let's get this tucked in. Just dig a little bit out with your hand. You know, one thing that I would say to do before transplanting any plant is, especially with compacted roots like this, just kind of take your fingers, kind of break it up a little bit, It's perfect the way it is, but at the same time, you want those roots to branch out, get into the soil, be a little bit less compacted. So that's the same for any transplanting you're doing. So that way they have some room to really to spread out. You want them to take on, you know, a lot of times people will buy plants from, you know, a fish store or something that are all compacted, things like that, and they forget to really spread out those roots before they even put them in their fish tanks, things like that. Really depends on what you're trying to grow, but good method to really try to get those roots to kind of spread out. You want them to kind of branch out, and that's the benefit to a good healthy root system. All right, so next is this last one we have here. I'm going to go ahead and get out. Look, you can see again, this is so dry. I just watered this about maybe 4 or 5 days ago. But you can see that, I mean, it's just dry, compacted. This one's actually from my nightstand, believe it or not. And I don't have a register there, but obviously it is very dry in our room, so it tends to just dry out. The winter time can always be so dry, but you can see I've got a very healthy stalk coming up on this one as well. You can see it's already got its own root system going, doing quite well there. So we're going to go ahead and get that one clamped off so we can replant that one, and we're going to replant this here. But before I do so, I'm going to get it wet, and we'll be right back. All right, so I got it wet. You can see it's literally dripping. I'm going to find the best spot to kind of dig in here. Actually, I think I want to break it apart a little bit before doing so, because what I'm trying to do is get a little bit more of that trunk line, and really find out how much I can snip off without losing any of the roots for either plant. So I'm going to go ahead and get that snipped. All right. So not quite healthy root system as the other one that we did before this, but you can see much neater root system. So I'm going to go ahead and set that in there, and I'm going to kind of break this up a little bit more here. Still a little brittle. I didn't get it quite as wet as I should have, but that's okay. The root system's still doing quite well. So I'm going to go ahead and dig us our 4th hole here and get that one planted in there. So because these ones were so brittle and dry, basically, with that soil that we had planted in there, I'm going to go ahead and give them these 4 plants a good watering at the base to try, even though we had pre-soaked the soil that they were going into. There was still a lot of the base soil that we took them out of that was still in it. So I'm going to give them a good watering with each of those, and I will be right back. Okay, so I'm back with a cup of water. Now this cup of water actually fished right out of my fish tank. The reason for that is it's high in nitrates, so I really want to give these plants a good chance at rooting, taking soil, so on and so forth, and I hope you can give them as best. So I always try to take my, every week when I do a water change, is when I really like to take and water my plants with it, to give that nutrients, and why waste the water and pour it down the drain when I can feed my plants with it. So I'm going to go ahead and utilize that. I also keep a water spray bottle filled up from the fish tank as well, so I can water the smaller plants, spray around the house with it, so on and so forth. So so that was good. I got just a little bit of water. Like I said, we had already pre-moistened the water. Now typically I would have liked to pre-moisten this bucket with fish tank water. I did not. I used just regular tap. I actually live on a well. I use tap water for that. But it's something that I would suggest, watering your plants with. If you have access to a fish tank and you didn't think about it, don't waste that water. Water your plants with it. They love it. So they'll help them grow. The nitrates from The fish tank water is really a good fertilizer for your plants. So I water my garden with it, I water my house plants with it, anything and everything. So that's it, guys. That's all there is to it. I'm going to go ahead and replant these 4 plants here back into these pots. But that's it. You successfully transplanted, split and transplanted your plants. Just in case, show you guys that this does work. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Sorry about that delay, but here is a clipping from one of those plants I showed you earlier, the 4th one that didn't have a clipping. This one has been probably 3-4 weeks now, and as you can see, it really hasn't opened. It wasn't open in the first place when I clipped it. It was actually quite a stubby root, but it was pushing the plant over, and so I wanted to get it out of the plant. As you can see from there, it didn't kill the old plant, and the new plant's doing great. So no issues with transplant shock, so on and so forth. And it's actually going to be the 4th plant that we end up putting in this one here. So we will have 4 brand new plants, and we've got a beautiful pot full of snake plants. So give me a minute, I'll be back after I've planted these. And we're back. So there you have it, 4 brand new snake plants, just like you bought them straight from the store in this already fancy pot, right? So that's how you do it, guys. You know, take your old snake plants or your existing snake plants and just repot them into new pot, and you can still use your old pot for the smaller ones. And once these ones get bigger and propagate more again, we can do more and more with it. You can see this one's a little loose, so unfortunately it's the soil's a little moister than I'd like it to, so but it'll dry out, take root right where it's at, and you know, continue to grow. The other thing that's nice about these is I found that these ones don't require a lot of light. I mean, obviously you can tell by the color discoloration that they should get some more light than they're getting. But you know, every once in a while, I think in the summer, this summer, I'm going to, you know, take them outside for the day a little bit and kind of go from there. So right now, all I'm doing is just kind of cleaning up the rims from the outside of the pot from the mess I made. Obviously, you know, the nice part about gardening is getting your hands dirty, but the worst part about gardening is leaving an unsightly mess that nobody wants to look at, right? So we're gonna have a lot of cleanup to do today, but other than that, we're good. So I'll take you guys over and show you the larger snake plants and what they can really turn into. We'll go from there. Okay guys, don't mind the mess here, but you can see here from the, as I pan out a little bit here, it looks like zoomed in quite a bit here. But you can see this snake plant, you can see how tall this bookshelf is. It's quite the mess at the moment, but you can see that this snake plant's every bit almost as large as this bookshelf. Now I do have it raised up off the ground a little bit there. It's sitting on top of my fireplace brick. You can see how tall that one is. Now I bought that one, probably about half as tall as that, but quickly realized that you know, it would look a lot better with 2. So rather than going and buying an additional snake plant, I actually split that one, and you can see how well it's doing. Now I'll show you here that that particular snake plant here, look, I don't know if I can get a good shot, but right down in here you can see that there are actually 2 plants here. So I could easily dig this one up, split it, get another one going, but I'm not going to do that at the moment. So but you know, thanks for joining today. Leave any comments, questions you have down below, and we'll see you in the next time. Thanks a lot. Take care.